Perhaps God was pleased with our prayers. On the 15th of August, my son regained full consciousness. By now, 36 hours had passed. Again, scans and MRI were done. We were told blood supply to the brain had resumed, which is why he has become conscious. Apart from me, only his wife and sister were allowed into the ICU, one at a time for just 2 minutes each. We were told to motivate him to the maximum level possible. By morning 11 a.m., he started shivering due to high fever. This was expected because of the shock and trauma that he had been through, and also infections are unavoidable in hospitals. His beard was shaven by 1 p.m. and we noticed that his face was swollen. The doctors said he was still not out of danger and anything could happen up to 72 hours. Our prayers continued while we waited in anxiety. My son was on oxygen and ventilator. Liquids were being fed through a Ryle's tube inserted in his nose. A catheter was inserted to collect his urine. Intravenous injections, fluids, oh my God, a truly horrifying sight. On the 16th, the doctors explained that since the mouth and tongue were paralyzed, biting, chewing and swallowing were not possible. The Ryle's tube in the nose was sending food directly into the stomach, but now, to avoid choking, his breathing had to be altered. A tracheostomy tube would be inserted through an external opening in his throat. Oxygen would be pumped directly into his lungs through this tube. Under anesthesia, this opening would be made a little below the vocal cords. They said this procedure was mandatory for patients who were in a locked-in state like this. This would also facilitate removal of ventilator. Later on, once this tube is removed and normal breathing resumes, he would be able to make sounds, but speech would depend on mobility of the mouth and tongue, and no time frame could be predicted for this. After the procedure, till his body got adjusted to this new foreign object, silent, soundless coughing began racking and shaking his body. Yet another painful sight. By the 17th, his cough reduced a little. His BP and pulse was stable. Though he could see only with one eye and hear only with one ear, through eye blinks he was able to indicate that he could hear and understand our words. Eye blinks were our one and only form of communication. We had to ask leading questions which would help him to blink a yes or no answer. Believe me, this was an extremely difficult task indeed. We were instructed to constantly motivate him, encourage him with positive words, play music and mantras in low volume and keep reassuring him. The weaning process for the ventilator was on. By the 18th of August, urine infection and fever developed. His mouth could open only up to 1 inch width. His lips were chapped and he had mouth ulcers. Skin was completely dry and dehydrated. Phlegm kept accumulating in the tracheostomy tube. It had to be suctioned out once in 2 hours to avoid the secretions oozing out of his mouth. This was a very noisy and painful procedure. On the 19th, self-breathing began. The ventilator was removed and put on a standby mode. The patient's condition was considered as stable, but we still had many more bridges to cross. By the 20th of August, the blood-thinning medications administered to him had started working. The clots in the brain were getting diluted, but there was bleeding from the tracheostomy tube in the throat. On the 24th of August, he was shifted to the ward. All the tubes remained except the ventilator. The patient was responding well to medicines and medical procedures. The condition was not really up to expectations, but the patient had crossed the danger zone. He had survived. His condition was stable. Doctors explained that although there was a little progress, there were no movements in the body yet. This is known as a locked-in state. They could not predict if the movements would be revived. If yes, to what percentage? When will he reach that positive state, or will he remain in a locked-in state for the rest of his life? By the end of the month, he was discharged, but internal organs were yet to be checked through different tests. He had to undergo neuro-rehabilitation for the next few weeks, which involved rigorous and vigorous physiotherapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, and a whole lot of other procedures to normalize his limbs and other faculties. Tracheostomy suctioning once in every 2 hours had to continue. He was still on oxygen since his breathing was very weak. We were told to get admitted to the previous hospital and get all this done for about 4 to 6 weeks. So, we were sent back in an ambulance. The doctors told us that my son was very lucky. This was a gift of a second life for him. But they also warned us that the difficult part actually starts now. And for the next 6 months to 1 year, the patient has to be looked after with great care. Our job was equivalent to bringing up an infant. We would have to teach him absolutely everything right from zero. The plus points in this case were that the victim's mental faculties like memory, understanding, reasoning, learning, etc. were all in place. They were all unaffected. But the physical body was still completely paralyzed. It had no strength to move or do any actions instructed by the brain. Sensory organs were working only partially. So, the future was still a big question mark. On the one hand, it was divine mercy. On the other, correct diagnosis and timely treatment by the medical experts. Then came family support and motivation, and above all, my son's young age, his positive thoughts, a fighting spirit, his willpower, all these collectively joined hands to help him survive. Revival had happened. The next stage was rehabilitation. We bow in surrender and gratitude for the divine blessings received. Please do watch the continuation video. You will find the link in the description box. Your likes and shares will help us. Please like this video, share with others, and subscribe. Thank you.